Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks for coming back and tuning into part 2 of this week's show featuring my conversation with David Swan. Look, if you're like me and you're struggling with your putting and you need some help, we're going to have it for you in this segment of the show. Go check out David's product at pur.golf, PUR.golf. Take a look at that while you listen to the conversation because your putting is about to get infinitely better. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything going on in your life for the next hour or so. You're going to enjoy this one. This is a fantastic segment. But before we get started, I want to remind you about our great friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
Okay, now making his Next on the Tee debut with me is David Swan. David is the founder of PUR Golf, which is spelled P-U-R, and they make a putting training aid that caught my eye last year at the PGA Merchandise Show, and it did for Tom Patry as well. Go online and check it out during our conversation at PUR.golf. David has also been a very successful college and pro basketball coach, plus an entrepreneur, and I couldn't be more excited I get to have him with me this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, David, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me, and those were 2 fantastic guests I'm following.
Yes, they are, and thank you for coming on early and listening in. I appreciate that very much. David, before we talk about the great training aid that really captured the attention and the imagination of both me and Tom Patry last year at the PGA Merchandise Show, I want to start by talking about your interest in the game of golf. When did you first start playing?
You know, we started seriously in college. Unfortunately, I grew up in the state of hockey in Minnesota, so hockey players are usually pretty good golfers. All my good friends are much, much better golfers than I am, but I got down to a 9 a couple years ago, and now I don't play enough golf. I don't even know if I legally have a handicap, but which is kind of crazy, right? You get into golf because you love golf, and then you can't play because you're working all the time. But that's for me and my therapist, I guess, to work out.
Indeed. David, and like I mentioned in your intro, from what I've read, you were a heck of a basketball coach in college at Northland College there in Wisconsin, later at Lake Forest College over in Illinois. Then you went to coach professionally over in Norway, where you took a team that wasn't any good at all and the fans were completely ignoring, and you turned them into a team that at one point won 35 games in a row, and now all of a sudden you're selling out every game. Talk about how you're able to do all that.
Story that the team I took over in Norway, they had a very rich, long history. So to say they weren't any good, we were struggling financially and all those aspects. So I think like with anything, and like when I was at Northland, right? You get a little bit of luck. You surround yourself with really good people and really good players that you paint a crazy vision on the wall and you get people to buy in, right? And it's just an astronomical amount of hard work. So I was really fortunate. I've coached great people and I have deep friendships now from all over the world. So I was really blessed to have those opportunities.
You mentioned it was a lot of hard work. I read at one point you were putting in 120 hours a week coaching. I can't imagine you got much sleep. Talk about the dedication and the hard work you did put into it.
boy, I mean, I hung it up at the age of what, 38. I'd been coaching for 14 years. Um, I just, yeah, I had no life, and I think I really had a hard time keeping it in perspective. And it was almost like the more we won, the more miserable I was. And I probably, at the end there, was not a very good person to be around with, from a basketball perspective and certainly from a family perspective. It just kind of consumed me. And I think that's the fine line, right? Is that it's hard to achieve greatness. And I'm not saying I did without paying a price. And my price was pretty severe on just an emotional, social side. It was hard to step away, but it was the right thing for me because I couldn't have continued. It wasn't physically possible.
David, fast forwarding to now, what inspired you recently to come out and put together this fantastic putting training aid that you've created?
Well, to make matter, it's a long story. I'll try to summarize in a couple minutes. My game, probably 5, 6 years ago, and I was having trouble breaking 100, and my friends, were tired of watching me be awful. So I went to for the first time kind of in my life, went to a fantastic coach in Minnesota, Joe Grupner. He was retired or is retired. He was Minnesota State Teacher of the Year a couple years ago. And we just started basically building from scratch. I mean, I didn't hit a golf ball for probably 5 months. And in that time, we were hitting a lot inside, when we started hitting balls and my joints ached, etc. So I told Joe, I said, I'm going to build the best putting mat in the world. So this is kind of how my mind works. And it was just, I found a guy who had a brush machine from World War II in the corner. We built his putting mat on brushes. I actually hooked up a, oh, I wish I had this on video, hooked up a club to the back of a PTO drive on a tractor and to test out this brush. And we built this, we called it Zero Impact, this fantastic hitting mat. The problem was it cost about $1,000 just to produce one. It weighed about 300 pounds. I mean, there was no money in this, right? So that was kind of a failure, but it was fun. And then Joe and I were hitting balls, and I always like to use alignment sticks and blah blah blah. And one day I looked down the 100 people hitting, and people had clubs on the ground and alignment sticks. And I said to Joe, I said, this is just stupid. There's got to be a better way, right? You spend 3 minutes trying to figure out if the sticks are parallel. And he was like, well, go find a better way. So we developed this product called PUR Align, which I absolutely love, but the reality is we're not making any money on it. So like we didn't even bring it to the PGA show. And we've got to find a way to mass market it. But it's a great product. We've sold thousands of them. And then I have been cursed my whole life, even when I was a little kid, of kind of looking at things and going, there's got to be a better way. And I keep a notebook by my bed because I'm an inventor, and and I woke up one morning at 3 o'clock and I started sketching out this putting device. And I think it really came from, I was down at Babcock National outside of Fort Myers, beautiful golf facility. And there was like 20 guys on the putting green, and they had mirrors and chalk lines and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way. And that really set in motion 5 years of just pure dedication to building the best putting trainer in the world. And I bought 5 3D printers that I hired a guy to run basically 24 hours a day. We would build a prototype, we would test it, we would send it to a college. I'd fly around the country, and people were like, oh yeah, it's cool, but if it could do this, but no one has ever figured out how to do this, right? And that's what took 5 years. And I have no idea how many major changes we made, but it was probably over 600. And we ended up with what we have today, and we're really proud. And, I was at the PGA show and I told everyone that stopped by our booth, you could go buy every putting device that is in this convention hall and throw them on the table. And ours does what all of them do, and we do it better. And I have never had one person tell me I was full of crap. So we are really, really proud of what we did. We have bootstrapped this thing and grown it organically. We just started doing advertising 10 days ago. So our growth has been just purely word of mouth. And, I think we're kind of at that tipping point now where we're really going to explode, because we've got more and more good coaches contacting us and more players, et cetera. And so I think this is going to be a great year for us.
So take that a step further, because I also read, didn't you challenge somebody along those same lines to say, if you can find a better putting aid, I'll buy you dinner? And you have never had to buy anybody dinner?
Yeah, I've said that many, many times. And I think so we launched last year at the PGA show, and we had at least 6 guys come by our booth. In fact, the most touching one was, but they all said a similar thing. There was a guy probably in his 70s, 80s, and he said, I bought one of these at demo day. And I didn't remember him, even though it was 2 days before. But it was so crazy. And he said, I came back today to tell you something. He said, I've been here 25 years. This is the best training aid I've ever seen in my life. And his wife said, that's the truth. He told me that at dinner last night, and I told him, you got to go back and tell the guy. So,
wow,
we are, yeah, we're really, really proud of what we accomplished. And it was with the feedback of hundreds, if not, maybe over 1,000 golfers and instructors and people testing this and giving our feedback. So we had engineers involved and friends and math teachers and plastics experts and blah blah blah. So,
David, I want to invite our listeners to go out there while we're talking and look at this thing, because it's fantastic. PUR.golf. Pure.golf is where you can go check it out. But I'm guessing by now people are trying to figure out, that haven't gone online or can't get there right now, probably want a visual. What does this thing look like? How'd you come up with the design? Can you walk us through how you came up with it and what it looks like?
truly, I have the first one, which was made out of aluminum, and it just kept morphing. It is basically a series of 2 bridges that are 5-6 inches tall, connected by expanding aluminum rails. And I've never tried to describe this. And the bridges have 2 little dangling sticks from them that we call truth gates, that are adjustable from basically 5 degrees margin of error to 0.37 degrees margin of error. And where they are incredibly different is they do not disrupt the ball. So it is not a marble you have to pick up. It is not a gate that gets jammed up. It is not a wicket where the ball starts. So even if you're a little offline, you can still see your pace. And then we have alignment strings that are basically 2 strings on top of each other in different colors. And it is, by physics or geometry or however you want to say it, the only way in the world to get accurate eye placement. So I don't care if you have lasers in your side of your eyes or a mirror or whatever, nothing does what the 2 strings do. And you can set those up to be directly over the ball, on the inside edge or on the outside edge. And once again, it is accurate to less than a millimeter. And, I guess I should add that we built this not to tell people how to golf. There are thousands of philosophies out there. We built this so whatever your philosophy is, you can set it up to reinforce it in practice. So it is a completely neutral machine. So we have the eyeline strings, and then we have something called path perfectors, which are basically It's the only adjustable arc trainer in the world, and it comes with two of them. So I've always kind of been skeptical of arc trainers because we all have a different arc and people are selling a stagnant arc trainer. So it's the only adjustable arc trainer, and you can use it for stroke length, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this machine, I guess if you said, "Hey, here's a part of putting. How does it work on it?" I think it covers all the bases but green reading.
So, David, why would you set up the string on an inside edge or an outside edge? Why wouldn't you just always set it
Oh,
right over the center of the ball?
yeah, you're asking a really damn good question. I do not understand why you would be on the inside edge, but there are people that have made a lot of money teaching people to have their eyes over the inside edge. So I'm not going to get into that debate. You can do whatever you want with it. And Chris, this is a funny story. So I think it was 4 years ago. So we were maybe a year and a half into, like, I was all in, right? We were going to solve this problem. And I was at the PGA show and I was having lunch at one of those round tables and it was crowded. So I sat down and three guys sat down and I knew one of them, but they were all guys over 55 and distinguished coaches. And they argued for about 45 minutes about where your eyes should be, and the physics and, oh, I've done studies, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I was obviously, and I got up and I said, guys, I'm sorry. I was kind of listening to your conversation. I have a question. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, how do you know where your eyes are? And they were like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're debating where your eyes should be, but how are you really telling where your eyes actually are? And the one guy said, well, I have my students drop a ball from their nose. So I'm like, okay, exactly. Right. So let's drop a ball from our nose. And the other guy was like, I use a mirror. And then the third guy was like, well, I just stand behind them and I tell them where their eyes are. So, we're sitting there debating literally what, millimeters of where it should be, but the testing of where it should be was completely archaic. And that was really like the point where I said, and we hadn't done the two strings yet at that point, but I was like, I am going to solve this problem. Like so when guys argue about this, they actually have a measuring device that is an accurate measuring device.
David, I'm guessing a few people, probably a lot more than a few, were telling you this thing will never work. How did you remain positive in the face of all the naysayers as you were putting this thing together?
This is probably, I've done entrepreneurial stuff, but nothing to this financial commitment. It's not easy. I mean, every day still is not easy. And, we have virtually no returns. We have tremendous reviews. We don't have a day where I go, ooh, that wasn't a good day. And it's still hard, right? Because I think I just believed that we could solve a putting problem, that we could make this game easier to learn, that we could help teachers teach better. We could, all of those things. Now, it's to be determined. Do people really care? I mean, I think that's the golden question, right? I mean, do they care? Do they get it? Do they understand they can get a lot better? But it was like a self-created challenge. And I was like, I mean, it's my personality, unfortunately. I'm like, we're not stopping until this thing is done. And I guess that's what, that and faith and feedback. But I would say most of my friends think I'm completely crazy. Without, no, I mean, truly, the people that have been with me on this journey, they've just shook their heads and gone, come on, you're out of your mind here. But, we set out to do something, and I certainly think we accomplished it.
So you said you're not going to stop until this thing is done. What is done?
Well, I think, it's been really interesting because we have made no changes for Well, we went to production. I was over in China with the engineers for 10 days about 14 months ago. And I'm really surprised because I had this, because we were constantly changing, right? That I was going to wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, we forgot this. And I haven't had one of those moments yet, but I've been looking for it. So, I'm sure there will be advancements, but boy, it's I can't even fathom what they would be.
Talk about a big roll of the dice and your friends telling you you're crazy and that sort of thing. I mean, everything about this, first of all, I think the thing is brilliant because I did see it last year at the PGA Merchandise Show, and Tom Patrick and I were out walking at demo day, and we both walked over to where you guys were outside, and we both walked away and said that's the best thing we've seen so far. And it's not cheap to show up at the PGA Merchandise Show as a vendor, oh, by the way. So you take a huge roll of the dice, but it seems, David, that roll of the dice, that gamble, is going to be worth it.
I think you're right. I mean, it is 97% of our marketing budget, and I just don't think there's a choice. I mean, you've got to get out there. This is a demonstrable product, and we're not from the golf world. I don't have a Rolodex of people that I can call and lean on. And it's really, there's no choice. And we went 2 years ago, so this would have been 23. We had a very small booth and brought what we thought at that time was we were done, right? And it ended up there were probably 100 prototypes after that, but it was a machine and it got rave reviews. I mean, it got rave reviews. And now I look at that in utter embarrassment, but you had to put it together. It was like in 11 pieces and blah, blah, blah. And no one knew who we were. And we took almost 200 orders from the show with people giving us their credit card. And we were like, I think we're going to be able to deliver in about 9 months. And we went away from that going, okay, this is no longer just a pipe dream. And then that's when we really got serious. And I was lucky enough to find a couple of the best plastics engineers in the world in Ontario. And we spent a lot of money and we took something that was ugly and in a bunch of parts and made it beautiful and collapsible and something you could set up in 5 seconds. But that first PGA show was like an affirmation of, guys just walking up to our booth going, wow, this is interesting.
And David, you've got two versions, right? You've got the Pure
Right.
Truth Trainer and the Pure Truth Prepare. Talk about the
Right.
difference between the two.
Well, and the Prepare, it uses all of the technology, et cetera, but the Prepare was almost an afterthought. And it really came from the hundreds of college golfers that were using the trainer, because the trainer is, I mean, it folds up into this beautiful, beautiful case, but it's not something you can slip in your golf bag. And these kids were saying, can you make something that we can, we're carrying our bag that we can put in the bag? So the Prepare, to me, the trainer is for training, the Prepare is for pre-round preparation. Right. So if you're going to hit 10, 15 putts, you're probably going to use the Prepare. And the Prepare kind of weans you off a lot of the functionality of the trainer, the eyeline strings, et cetera, but it still has the ball pad and it still has the truth gates. So it's kind of like the midpoint of the trainer to real golfing in a round. And it's been really interesting because we don't really promote the Prepare a lot. We sell more trainers, but at the same time, the Prepare the following is growing. And right now, almost all our sales they're buying the bundle of the trainer and the Prepare. And I don't know if 10 years from now which one's going to sell more. I truly don't know, and I guess whatever I think isn't going to matter because it's going to happen, right?
Right. David, before I let you go, remind our listeners one more time how they can go out online and take a look at your putting aid trainers and then get a couple, like you say, to get the whole kit and caboodle, get it all at the same time and get one and get out there and start practicing their putting?
So first of all, and we don't do this often, but if someone listened to me this long, they deserve a prize. So if you want to use the promotion code 22, so the number 22 and then next, so 22 next, all in one word, we will give people 22% off any product they buy. So
Wow.
as a thank you for listening and bearing with me. And once again, our website is pur.golf. So it's pur.golf, not pur.golf.com or pur.com. It's pur.golf. And you can follow us on Instagram at PUR Golf Training, Pure Golf Training.
David, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come and
Chris,
be a part of the
thank you very
show.
much.
You're fantastic.
Yeah, Tom said you were a great guy, so he was right.
Wow. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate Tom saying that. But I mean it sincerely. When we were there, we took a look at what you had, and we thought this is the best thing that we've seen at this show. And now we got to get it and put it in play. So thank you so much for giving us an opportunity for the promo code, and I hope we get this privilege of catching up with you again sometime soon.
Oh, yeah, it would be fantastic. Thank you, Chris.
Take care, David. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Folks, that again is David Swan and PUR.golf, PUR.golf. Go online, promo code 22next. So make sure you get yourself 22% off. Sincerely, we walked around, Tom and I walked around demo day, and as you guys know, I couldn't go this year, but we went last year. And as we were walking around in all the different setups, this one caught our eye. And then we went over and then we actually tried, we demoed it, as you would imagine. And we used it and we said, you know what? As you know, Tom, Mr. Short Game, right? And the best way for us to cut our strokes is to stop three putting and to, hit the ball closer to the hole with our wedge game. So we thought this is genius. This is a great thing that people can use that are going to get them rolling the ball better on their target line. And again, he talked about putting your eyes over and stuff. But one of the things it also helps you with is seeing where your target line is, because that ball is going to roll pure through the end of the putting aid, right? It's got two little gates, going to roll right through it. So it's also going to help you figure out, are you setting yourself up properly, right? Are you on the right line? So that helps you as well. So there's so many positives that come from using this training aid. So it's fantastic stuff. I encourage you to go out there and look at it. Again, pure.golf, promo code 22next, and let me know what you think. Right? Send me a note. Send it through the website, nextonthet.net. Send me an email that way, or hit me up on social media at CT Mascaro, and let me know what you think of it, because I think this is going to go a long way to improving your short game and improving your putting stroke. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out again to Scott Felix, Dr. Bob Winters, and David Swan for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week are our good friend and top instructor, John Hughes, is going to be back. And John is one of the very few to reach master professional status. Going to get a lot of playing tips for you next week. So be sure to come back and listen to that wonderful segment. Another great friend of the show, 1978 PGA champion John Mahaffey, is going to be here. We'll get his insights on what's going on around the PGA Tour, some of the changes that they're talking about for next year. And we'll go back to Oakmont, talk a little bit about his PGA championship there and some of his memories of that event and being at Oakmont. Another one of the top 100 instructors in our game, Jeff Smith, is going to be back. And Jeff makes every segment so much fun when he is a part of it. He's got a lot of great stories. He caddied for the sponsor of the Pro-Am at the Waste Management, so you know he's got some inside-the-rope stories that he's looking forward to sharing with all of us. So very excited to have all three of these guys back as part of the show, each and every one of them. Fantastic. I want to thank our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. For coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find the show by clicking on the sports section tab, and you're going to see the most recent episode for you front and center on the homepage of the sports section, or you can click on sports and then podcast network. Then you'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that. And many of the most recent episodes of the show are going to be available for you right there. You can also find this show over on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Player.fm, plus Golf News Net. Check us out there. What a fantastic site Ryan Ballingy has created over there over on Golf News Net. And as always, my thanks to the folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there on your favorite device. But like I say all the time, my sincere thanks go out to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.